directed. I want to hear.
Handsome!
Mad Max 2!
All right, this man needs no introduction. He's an absolute legend. Please welcome to the stage, Mel Gibson. Woo! We're in Philadelphia.
I'm walking, breathing,
Looking good.
blinking, peeing.
That's good. In fantastic shape. Better shape than I am.
Big belly.
Facts. Look, let's take you all the way back. First question I have for you. It's a nice little icebreaker question. Do you remember getting your first SAG card? Your first project where you got your SAG card?
First, what part?
Project where you got your SAG card?
Oh. I don't know when I got the SAG card. I think I got the SAG card last year when I started to notice things sagging. But it was like, probably first American film
Yeah.
was, and I can't remember what that was.
I'm sure that's why IMDb exists, right? That's we could Google that.
Yeah.
I gotta ask you, Mad Max is absolutely incredible. That put you on the global map. Looking back, what do you remember? There we go. Let's hear for some Mad Max. Looking back, what do you remember most about filming in the Australian outback on a shoestring budget with George Miller?
Yeah, it was a fairly simple project. They didn't have a lot of money, and it was like you weren't special. You didn't have a trailer. You kind of changed your costume out in the middle of no place.
Back to basics, huh?
Yeah. So it was, and it was kind of a thing where you didn't have so many sort of union pigeonholes. So you found yourself doing things like dragging camera equipment around.
You yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, so everybody that you guys were also like crew also?
Oh yeah, man. I remember dragging cameras up to the top of the pyramids, at 4 a.m. and all kinds of stuff. And then you get in front of it, So it was.
What did that film teach you? Because that movie wasn't made with a lot of money, and it came out so good, and it was obviously a cult classic. What did that film teach you later in your career when you would go on to direct yourself?
Oh, a lot. Yeah. George Miller is the kind of a master of. He actually shoots the edit.
Does he really?
Pretty much. He's kind of a mathematician like that. So he achieves excellence, but it's very scientific. But he's a doctor, So 3 and 3 makes 5 or whatever he comes up with, and he manages to shoot in a way that I found very curious. And I was like, why are you doing it like that? He said, because I'm going to stick it together with this. And then I began to understand.
So he's editing the movie in his head already.
Oh yeah.
As you guys are shooting.
He's a big storyboard guy.
Fascinating. Now, working on that film in those conditions, as a young actor especially, when was it dawned on you, wow, this is something that's pretty cool. This is going to be something special.
It didn't. I mean, it was something that I wasn't used to doing. It was really basically the first thing I ever did. And one never knows how it's going to slap together or how it's going to be taken.
Sure.
So I was still like 21 years old, so I didn't know anything. I still don't know much, but I really knew nothing back then. And it was, I had no notion until people started digging it.
Sure. Now, we're going to jump around your career because I can't cover all your films. We'd be here until tomorrow. But when you first stepped into the role of Martin Riggs in Lethal Weapon, there we go. Did you have any idea that would be one of the most iconic buddy cop movies and would set the bar for what buddy cop dynamics are?
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because usually with that kind of film, and I'd seen them, and I read a bunch of scripts where the guy was a tough guy and he didn't have any flaws, and so that was an unusual one, and I liked it because the guy was like, he was not balanced. He was a kooky guy. He was like thinking about, he had thoughts of ideation. He wanted to knock himself off, and he didn't care because he had PTSD from wherever he was. And so that's what made it special for me, I think, was those characters. And the other guy was just kind of settled, and they were from totally different worlds, and it was just great. I just thought it was a well-informed script from a young screenwriter named Shane Black.
I love Shane.
Yeah, and he sort of got the right tone and the right mood on the whole thing, and it was a real guy movie, you know. And it was, I thought it was different because it broke some of the conventions that had been made in films of its type.
Sure.
But it was a film of its type.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, I don't know how many of you guys know this. I'm sure most of all of you know this, but you're really the one that kind of helped Robert Downey Jr.'s resurgence in a lot of ways. And I mean, he's a phenomenal actor. I mean, he's a good buddy of Shane Black's as well. Talk to me about your relationship with Robert throughout the years.
Robert's he's a sweet puppy, you know. He's about 8 or 10 years younger than me, and I think so. I sort of, when I first met him, he was so like kind of vulnerable, and he was, you know, he wasn't really with the program yet. He was out misbehaving like crazy. But you know what? I saw the guy try, and I saw him try to just like not be like, you know, and you know, I have the problem too. You know, I got, you know, substance abuse problems in my history. I knocked it off, you know, 20 years ago, but like, you know, I haven't had a drink, but it's like...
Let's hear it.
And so, you know, you can sympathize with a guy like Bob and say, well, you know, it's kind of a disease, and he's got to get a handle on it. So really, you're just kind of, you're there for somebody, and but it's actually Bob that did the work.
Right.
And he's the one that pulled himself up through his own bootstraps. He got the courage, he got the strength, he got the, I don't know what it was. He got something from, you know, the ether that enabled him, and he found a way through it. And I'm so proud of him. He's a good dude too.
Absolutely, and he has, like, even in his early work, you see the talent just exuding out of him in his work. And he's such a phenomenal performer.
Oh yeah, and some, you know, the best actors are kind of half crazy.
Sure.
And Bob has that crazy streak in him, you know. And it's but it's funny and charming, and you know, he's a good dude.
Never heard him called Bob before.
Oh, Bob, yeah, we call him Bob. Yeah.
There you go. Look, Braveheart. We're gonna talk about Braveheart. Greatest film ever made. You won 5 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Director. When you were filming those massive battle sequences, which are all done practically, especially then, is there ever a moment where you step back and go, man, this is massive and it may not go right?
Of course, you know, it was only my second outing as a director.
Right.
It was like massive. There were like 3,000 people on the set, and they're all looking at you like you know what you're doing.
Sure.
And it was like I pretended I knew what I was doing. And it happened. Somehow it came together. It was, logistically speaking, it was a monster. And from feeding everybody to, you know, getting them all in makeup and then the war and stuff like that. But the proudest achievement of that was that I think only one guy got a hangnail in the whole thing, and I think there was a broken nose and a twisted ankle, but that was it.
Wow.
So, because I used to stand up with a megaphone and I said, what's the S word? And they'd all go, safety. And I say, right. I said, if anybody hurts anyone, I'll kill them. You know? It's like, so they all managed to get through it, and man, they're big sequences, long shoot. 105 shooting days, man.
That's a long shoot.
You don't get any days off. I was a lunatic. They had to put me in a straitjacket by the end, but yeah, I'm really proud of it.
Oh, it paid off. It's an incredible film. Still holds up to this day. Absolutely incredible. I kind of want to talk about your directing a little bit more, because I feel like, first of all, to come out of the gate being your second film and winning an Oscar is no easy task. But one thing that I've heard from a lot of actors when I've done these panels is a theme is that being a great director is being a great problem solver. What would you say is the #1 quality that you take into consideration when you're directing?
I would say it's desperation, because there are problems that crop up by the battalions every day, and you have to make split decisions to save time and money. And they're not all the right decisions, but I got a pretty good instinct about that.
Sure.
And you just have to, you know, make the right call at the right time. It's just, you know, and you got to do it. And there's no way out of it.
Yeah, once you're rolling into there, and once you're shooting.
And there's all these people standing around depending on you, and you depend on them too. So they contribute as well. So there's a lot of people solving problems. It's not just me. I mean, I'm just mostly like just a traffic cop, you know. And it's just like, okay, you go there, and so you get a lot of help too. And so you don't do these things alone.
Absolutely not. The one thing I've learned is that making a movie is a team effort. 100%.
Absolutely.
Now, you played warriors, cops, historical figures. Which role required the most physical training, and which one left you with the most bruises?
Oh my God. I think, it was Braveheart. It was like, because I was directing, and then you'd have to get on the horse and fall off the horse and do all that kind. I did fall off the horse. The horse was a killer. It was, and I ended up firing the horse after he did it to another guy too. I said, "You're fired." He said, "No more oats." I said, "No." And it was like, we took his nose bag away, he left crying.
Wow, I guess, is that the one that left you with the most bruises physically? I'm sure emotionally.
Absolutely, yeah. I was pulling hips and twisting ankles, and you go through all sorts. You got a battery of chiropractors and people with electrical stimulation, you know, things that just zapping you, and it did wonders for my brain too. And it was just, it was a real grind back then. I couldn't even talk.
Really?
After it was finished, I had to just kind of sit in a room with a cup of tea and
just decompress.
a wheat toast and just like stare at the wall and smoke a bunch of cigarettes, you know.
It's so fascinating getting inside, trying to get inside your head about some of this stuff. But much like George Miller, how you described how he edits the movie in his head, when you were putting together Braveheart, did you kind of use the same type of thing?
Absolutely. You learn, you use what you learned. And I mean, my film school was all those great directors I worked with, Peter Weir and George Miller and Dick Donner and, you know, the Franco Zeffirelli and all these guys, you know. And I didn't even get on with Franco, but he had some pretty good tricks. Oh yeah, I stole them. And
what were some of those tricks?
Oh my God, he was an art director for Bertolucci, right? So what he would put in a shot and how he would construct it and what you'd see in the foreground to fill the shot and make it aesthetically pleasing, Franco was really good at that. And you know, we'd have screaming matches every day. Poor guy wouldn't turn up to work, you know. You could light his breath, you know. And so I started to get pretty annoyed with him. In fact, that's when I started directing.
Really?
Yeah. It was like, I'd be there at 6 a.m. ready to go, and he wasn't there. And I had financed the film, so my farm was on the line, and I was like, oh, geez. I said, so we can't just do nothing. So I started to say, okay, we're doing this sequence. I said, put a track over there, put an 80mm lens on it. We're going to key light it from over on that side, and we're going to do this soliloquy on the move. And they shot it.
Really?
Yeah, and they put it in the film. And Franco came in halfway through and he said, what are you doing? I said, get off my set. You know, it's like one of those things, you know. God help him, you know, we ended up being pretty friendly, but man, we had us. That was the only time I ever really had a angle with a director, yeah.
Now, I have to ask, because I feel that like you have such a wealth of knowledge, but what's something that we would know about the making of Braveheart that like happened behind the scenes that you would know?
The what?
The making of Braveheart that we wouldn't know.
Oh.
Behind the scenes story? Besides firing the horse?
I don't know, the stunt guys.
What about stunt guys?
Well, the horses, for example, the RSPCA came after me for cruelty to animals, right? Because they saw these horses being flipped and doing running W's and all this sort of stuff. And they came up to me and they were out to hang me because, yeah. And I said, they weren't real horses. And they said, what? I said, the stunt guy and I got together and we said, what if we get mechanical horses on tracks that undulated, and you could fire on air jacks, and you cover them with like fur and stuff, and they look pretty real, but they actually look like they're riding, and you can actually do horrible things to them. You can even throw them on people. They only weighed about 150 pounds, and people got crushed by them.
Really?
Yeah. And they even moved. You pull the rein, and the head moved. It was crazy. So we constructed fake horses for a lot of the really heavy stuff. There's some real ones in there too, but like, you know, if you cut it right. And we had a wonderful editor called Steve Rosenblum, and he was a master at not showing the trick, you know.
That's amazing. So that's the magic of filmmaking right there. Let's jump around. I want to talk about signs for a second, because I love signs. There we go. Signs made me afraid of cornfields to this day. I can't go to like a cornfield maze. Can you talk about the strangest fan theory that you've ever heard about that film at all, or working with M. Night just in general?
I didn't understand the question.
A fan theory. Have you ever heard any crazy fan theories about signs at all from fans that you've interacted with?
You mean about crop circles?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, people can't explain some of them, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what to think about crop circles. Maybe there's some kind of magnetic pull in the earth, or perhaps the government is experimenting with some new kind of, I don't know. It sucks down a circle of corn, and I guess it must need to eat whatever it is. You know, I don't really have a theory about it. I do believe that there are other things outside of us. You know, I'm not closed off to that. I believe in ghosts and angels and all sorts of stuff, you know, extraterrestrial beings, but I have no theory on that. And I've heard some wacky theories, but I just kind of turn off to it because it doesn't kind of want to go in.
I am so sorry. I do not mean to interrupt. I do not mean to interrupt. But Fan Expo Philly, ladies and gentlemen, make some noise, Mr. Danny Glover. Let's get a little quick photo.
Quick photo? Photo op. That's what's good. We have a photo.
Take some pics right quick.
This is what Fan Expo's all about for you people. Wow. Incredible.
We're gonna let you guys continue your panel. We're so sorry we had to come in. We gotta take them all. Thank you, sir. Ready to go? All right, let's go.
Thank you so much, Danny. Look, it's a little cameo. You guys got a little cameo there. Ah, that's awesome. Oh, cool. Oh, there we go. Yes, Mel needs a microphone. There we go. You take this one. There we go. We're back on track. You know what? That actually perfectly cues up my next question. So, look, you were once confirmed to be directing Lethal Weapon 5. And then, there we go. And then I think somewhere in September, you said it wasn't quite right, it wasn't quite where it needed to be at the time. What can you share about Riggs and Murtaza coming back to the universe of Lethal Weapon?
You know, unfortunately, the director who was involved on all the others passed away. He sort of an untimely, but he was 91. He had a pretty good innings. But I made 6 films with that man, so it was kind of an emotional thing for me that he passed away. It was like your dad, you know. And so he said before he went, he says, "Hey kid, if I drop off the perch, you take the reins." And I said, "Shut up, you're not gonna go anyplace." But he did. So I remembered that he said that, but I didn't say anything. But everybody else said that he said that. And they gave me that. So I sat down with the writer and we did another 2 or 3 drafts in the screenplay, and it came out pretty good. In fact, I think it's the best of all of them. Oh yeah. And it's got like a lot of fun, and it's got really emotional. And for one reason, I mean, the studios are having a lot of problems, you know? It's like, I don't know what the deal is, but they can't get that up.
Really?
Yeah, it's weird.
It is. I mean, we've seen a revival on Top Gun. Yeah, a lot of movies from that era we're starting to see, so it's kind of crazy.
I'm not quite sure what the problem is, but it's a really good screenplay. And we gotta get this guy back.
Yeah, we gotta get him back. All right, let me ask you this. Where would you want the characters to be now, like in the world?
Where they are, you know? They're retired.
Yeah.
I still gotta my character has a crappy desk job, and he's watching all the young guys do all the hot stuff, and then he's retired, he's a widower, and all that kind of stuff. But they sort of like get onto something, and they're doing something they shouldn't be doing, and of course they're getting into trouble, but they have a lot of fun along the way.
That's amazing.
And it tackles some real issues about human slavery and stuff like that. So it was, it's got a lot of substance to it, I think.
I think we need all you guys out there to get on social media. Yes, absolutely. Now, you've been both behind the camera, in front of the camera, in some of the most iconic scenes in film history. What's more stressful for you, delivering the perfect performance or capturing the perfect shot?
I think the bigger challenge is in the overview is directing stuff, and that's a bigger challenge. I mean, I remember when we were doing Braveheart, big shots of, with all people belting each other, and the massive scope of the thing was primary in my mind. And then the first AD, he couldn't move his head. He was this English guy, and he used to talk like this. And he says, I think they're going to shoot, stand by. And he'd come up to me and he'd say, all right, we've done this scene. I think you better hop in there and do your bit. And then I'd say, oh shit, okay. And it was almost like a drag. Yeah, and I'd jump in and I'd do 3 takes and I said, okay, we're out of here, And so that performance, yes, one needs and wants a good performance, but I think I had a pretty good handle on who that guy was, and just followed a little instinct. But the more difficult task, I think, is just trying to sort of coordinate everything to come together. The right wind, the right light, the right shot, the right performance in the shot from other performers or yourself. The thing on the horse where he's walking around talking to the guys, and he's sort of getting them all roused up to go to war, was the horse did the work, because it was a skittish horse. And it took everything I had to hold on to that beast. And every time I'd yell, he'd take off. So it gave that performance something like I was raring to go, because the horse was like, And then when I would let him go, he'd just take off, freedom, all that shit. And it was like, it was fantastic, So, I found that the horse actually was the better actor in that scene.
Where's the Oscar for the horse, right?
I don't know, but he got an extra bag of oats.
There you go. The horse was rewarded.
Yeah.
Look, from Mad Max's post-apocalyptic world to Braveheart's medieval Scotland, you've conquered so many worlds. Is there any setting that you haven't explored that's on your bucket list?
Yes.
What would that be?
I wrote a script about 15 years ago, and it's really cool. And it's probably prohibitively expensive, And nowadays, the way the cinema kind of suffers a little bit,
Yeah,
It's hard to justify the cost of some things, but it's a story back in the 15th century in Italy, and pretty cool. There's everything. There's murder, intrigue, people poisoning one another. It's about a family.
No, we got to see this movie now.
Like The Godfather, but it's like the 15th century.
All right, Mel, what studio are we pitching this to? Let's go to a studio. Let's pitch this movie. We got to get it made.
Well, they're all scared.
That's true. That's not untrue. Now, you've worked with some of the biggest names in Hollywood. Has there ever been anyone that surprised you with their approach to a role?
Some people are really pretty deep. I worked with this guy once, and it was a goofy little film. It was a low-budget, goofy film, but the guy brought a lot to it. It's this guy called Walt Goggins.
Yes.
He was cool, and he played this bad guy who was trying to murder Santa Claus, and I was Santa Claus, and it was
Best Christmas movie ever, he says on the end.
yeah, it's a good Christmas movie. It's kind of got the right tone, doesn't it? Yeah. Anyway,
That's awesome.
guys like that. Everybody I've worked with, I've always loved.
One of the movies that I absolutely love is Hacksaw Ridge. Anybody seen Hacksaw Ridge? I love that movie. Andrew Garfield's performance, incredible.
That guy's amazing. He's a self-starter. All you have to say with Andrew is action.
Yeah, honestly, he brings the emotions.
He brings it, man.
It's incredible.
He brings it.
Share with me, because some of those war action sequences are pretty brutal, but they're very good. Like, you had such a great eye for that. Talk to me about working on that film.
About what?
Hacksaw Ridge, the action sequences.
Oh yeah. Well, we didn't have very many days to shoot it.
Really?
It was a low budget. It was like, I think it was about 27 mil US, but we had a 59-day shoot, which was kind of luxurious this day and age. And all up, I think we had about 19 days to shoot the battles and give all three sections of the battles a different character. So, you know, I was very concerned about that, the musicality of, because you can't make everything just the same. Each battle has to have a different characteristic. And but there was a lot of wonderful special effects and explosions, and what we didn't have, we put in a little after, which is kind of, you can do that now, dust hits on them.
Sure.
All kinds of stuff, but very complicated. I was very fortunate to have a wonderful editor on that and I wondered about the editor the whole time. And then
You wondered about the editor the whole time.
it's like, I wonder if this guy's any, he's all right. He was always saying, could you get me a shot of it? And I'm like, okay. And then I saw his first rough cut, and I said, this guy's a good editor. And then we both sat down together and tore it up. And he won an Oscar for that.
Honestly, that movie has so much heart. It's incredible, and it really shows.
Great edit.
Fantastic film. Now, we do have a few fan questions that some of you pre-submitted that I have for you, Mel. This one is from Jeff W. from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He asks, do you have any memorable stories filming The Patriot with Heath Ledger?
Oh, yeah. Heath was a great kid. He was all of 21, I think,
This breakout role. Any fun memories from working with him?
Yeah, he was a nice kid. It's just sad that he went so early and he was just hitting his straps, he was just getting really good. So I saw him develop on that, and then, that was a big show. Roland Emmerich was Roland Emmerich's like, he's the toughest man on two legs. The guy chain smoked 1 million cigarettes a day, drank a bottle of wine every night, was there before everybody else, and you could drive nails into his feet and he wouldn't notice because he was so focused on this German guy, right? And he came up to me, just before I had to hatchet that guy, and he said, because Roland, very German and very, he talks like this a lot, and it's like, he said to me, when you hit the guy with the hatchet, I want you to hit him, 30 or 40 times. And I was like, what? You want me to hatchet the guy 30 or 40 times? And he goes, yeah. And he wouldn't say much to the actors. He would never give you any acting direction. He would just say stuff like, I want you to hit him with the hatchet like 30, 40 times. And then I sort of thought, and he's walking away. I'm thinking, 30 or 40 times? I mean, this is not a slasher movie, right? And he walks away, and he gets a fair distance from me, and he goes like this. And I'm just watching him, and he walks away, and he turns around, and he says, oh yeah, and when you hit him with the hatchet, I want you to go a little bit crazy. And so I thought, oh, and then I understood, he just wanted sort of PTSD whack job, So I did it, I said, is that good enough? And he goes, yeah.
Got it. Caroline from Asbury Park, New Jersey asks, with the resurrection of the Christ set to continue the story of the Passion of the Christ, how did you approach elevating the narrative and scale of the sequel compared to the original?
Wow. I've written, it took me about 8 years to write the script for the sequel, if you can call it that, the resurrection of the Christ, which is like, because it's a very complex and almost impossible to understand subject. So that necessarily you have to underpin it with a great deal of all of salvation history and theology. So it took a lot of digging, and I wrote it with first with Randall Wallace, and then my brother and I sat down and had a crack at it, and then back to Randy, and back and forth. So like there was a lot of good minds on it. And Randall went to divinity school in Duke or someplace. And he's from Tennessee. He's down home, and my brother and I, of course, were raised by the same guy who taught us our faith, and it was for us. It was a very difficult thing to find and synthesize, because you have to understand firstly why it had to happen, and to understand something like that, you have to think like, why is mankind so important in this process? Like, why are the big realms of good and evil slugging it out for the hearts, minds, and souls of mankind? Why us? I mean, we're just a bunch of like fucked up things, right?
Skin puppets.
Right, like we're so imperfect. And I speak for myself, but I've met other people and they're imperfect too. And,
I'm one of them.
Yeah, and yeah, I was especially going to mention you. You have to ask yourself, why are we important in that? And why are we the meat in the sandwich of that whole huge story? And I think in order to understand that, you have to start with the fall of the angels, in the firmament before, right at the beginning. It's a pretty crazy idea. What does that look like?
I'm excited to see this.
I know what it looks like.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty big thing. And it's not one film; it's two films.
Is it?
Yes, because it is massive.
I just saw that the social media post that Lionsgate did for it. So
Yeah, they picked it up. Yeah, they read the script. They liked it. They were flying it. So it's pretty crazy.
do we have a time frame of a release date at all?
No,
Not yet?
I'm going to Rome tonight.
Are you really?
Yeah, to start.
Wow, to start. Here we go.
And I am scared shitless. I have to tell you, I'm scared to death.
Are you?
Kinda.
If
I
anybody,
hatched it with my brother and Randy and kind of and
but if anybody's going to have a handle on this, Bill, it's you. I mean,
I don't know. We'll see. I'm half. But I think if you're not afraid of something like that, there's something wrong.
I would agree.
So I have to do. I have to do a really good job.
Oh, you're going to crush. You're going to knock it out of the park, and pretty soon, whenever that movie's out, I'm sure we'll be up on the stage talking about it and picking it, figuring out all of it.
Spare a thought.
This is from Kelsey from New York City. She asked, what was it like working with George Miller on the Mad Max movies?
Oh, fantastic, yeah. As I said before, he's kind of a scientist when it comes to filmmaking. And I mean, look at the editing and just the way he makes things happen. Even back, when I was doing The Road Warrior or something, he was, that was just like backyard stuff.
Right.
And he was doing stuff like, throwing pig's heads and, it was crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. But if you edit it right, it looks great.
Absolutely.
Thinking to yourself, this will never work. And he said, yeah, it'll work. Most of that truck chase at the end of The Road Warrior was done standing still.
Really?
I was in a truck, and they had a track and a camera on the back that was doing this, and they had a wind machine on, and it was just filmed up against the sky, so you couldn't see anything blowing by. And so much of it was just done standing still.
The magic of filmmaking.
Yeah. He did an experiment called simulated movement with me, and I'm saying, how's that going to work, George? He said, hang on, let me show you something. He said, put this blindfold on. I'm like thinking, can I trust you? So I put this blindfold on, and they laid a broomstick on the floor, and I had to stand on the broomstick. And he got two grips on either side of the broomstick. He says, now when I tell these guys to lift you up, they're going to lift you way up in the air. But don't worry, I'm going to have you by the waist so you won't fall off the broomstick, right? So I got the blindfold on, and I go way up in the air, right? And then he said, take the blindfold off, and I did, and I was only an inch off the floor.
Wow.
But what he'd done was that the guys lifted the broomstick just a little off the floor. And what he did was squeeze my ribs and kneel down. So I felt as if I felt as if I had moved up. So that's called simulated movement. You know.
Have you used simulated movement for any of your films?
Oh, yeah. In Braveheart, there was some. You know?
Really?
Oh, yeah. There was a guy who couldn't ride a horse. He told me he could ride a horse, but when he got there, he couldn't ride the horse. And I'm like, so I used the old George Miller technique. What we did was we put him on the shoulders of a stuntman and put a little wind on him. And I shot him from a low angle so you could only see the sky, and he's going around swipe. And there were guys running by him with spears and stuff like that on either side. And there was some clown in the foreground with a bad wig going flick, 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 so you thought that the mane was flying up on the horse. Oh yeah. And he looks like he's flying through the battle. He looks like the best rider in the world, but it was just done out there in the middle of the field,
Welcome to film school with Mel Gibson. This is pretty awesome.
Pretty weird. Shooting stuff backwards.
What did you shoot backwards?
Shoot a lot of stuff backwards.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to drop an axe on my neck.
That's facts.
You got to start with the axe on the neck and just pull it back, and that way you can go all the way down with it in slow motion. So it's like, stuff like that.
I love this stuff. This is so cool. Now, Zach D from Clinton, Connecticut asks, what was the most physically demanding role you've ever had? I think you said it was Braveheart. David B from Philadelphia asks, is there a role you were, this is a good one. Is there a role you were offered but passed on for one reason or another that you kind of regret now?
Oh, the bunches of them.
Really?
Yeah, I couldn't do them. I was so busy I couldn't do them. When I was doing The Patriot, Ridley Scott wanted me to do Gladiator, right? But I couldn't do it because I was doing The Patriot. So I thought, oh shit, I kind of like the script, but didn't do it. So, you miss things. And other people get opportunities, like Russell got a good opportunity there,
That's crazy. How different this world would have been as you as a Maximus, yeah. Wow. Let's see, Don from Pennsylvania asks...
I'm making a cannibal movie where a guy eats his mother-in-law.
Wait, you're thinking of making this movie?
Yeah, and call it Gladiator.
I got it.
Yeah, it's a bad
Slasher?
Yeah.
It's a family friendly movie. But look, Mel, it has been an honor talking to you today. Thank you so much for your insight and your knowledge. You are absolutely incredible. Everybody, let's hear it from Mel Gibson. Yes, thank you so much. Also, let's hear it for our ASL interpreter, making sure that everybody can enjoy these panels. Yes, thank you guys so much for coming out. You guys are incredible. Thank you.